Okay, so I think we're good to go. We'll see what happens. I think we're okay anyway. I don't know about the outside world. So I'd like to introduce Chris Brown. He's the CEO and founder of Mango Mac and the founder of Mapstack. I'm sure he will tell you more. Over to you, Chris.
Okay, I appreciate this is the last presentation before lunch, so it's going to be a little bit more lighthearted and less technical than the previous ones we had. So the name of this talk is why 99% of humanity doesn't use GIS and what we at Mapstack plan to do about it. And don't worry, the talk isn't as long as the title. Okay, so let's jump into it. We're going to start with a little bit of fun. So I'm going to give you a 1-minute pitch about what Mapstack is. Now, the reason I'm doing this, I was at a startup conference in Thailand the week before last, and there was a track there where they had a pitching event where all of the startup founders had to give a 1-minute elevator pitch. I'd never prepared one, so I was having some fun this week making my first ever 1-minute elevator pitch. A minute feel. Apparently, I've got to hold this like a rapper. Okay. So I've been working on my first 1-minute elevator pitch. So this is the first time anyone's ever heard this. Okay. So this is a world first. Unfortunately, I haven't memorized the whole thing yet. So I might have to refer to my piece of paper here. So, and go easy on me if I make any mistakes. Okay. So here we go. 1-minute pitch. Someone start the timer. So, hi, I'm Chris, and I run a startup called Mapstack, and we're on a mission to increase the data literacy of humanity by making the world's open data accessible and useful for everyone without the need for experts or sophisticated tooling. So all of us here know that open data is a priceless global resource, but often, unless you're an expert, it's very hard to find the data that you need and even harder to make any sense of it. If I was to ask you how many counties in Texas have a population greater than 50,000 and a median income greater than 80,000, how would you find the answer to that question, and how long would it take you? I've worked in location intelligence for over 15 years, and I can tell you that most people can't leverage open data to quickly, easily, and correctly answer questions like this. Mapstack will change that. Mapstack is the YouTube of open data. We're creating a future where all of the world's open data is one search away and accessible as free interactive maps that are so easy to use that even a child can find answers to complicated questions. Did I make the minute? Okay. Don't all clap at the same time. That's fine. Okay, so that's the 1-minute pitch. What we're going to do now is we're going to drill down into what does that mean. So you've probably got a rough idea now. There's going to be a platform out there that aims to contain all of the world's open data in one place. So I've got a techie crowd here, so we'll go off on a little bit of a technical tangent. What we want to do for open data is what GitHub did for open source software. Prior to GitHub, open source projects were kind of scattered around all 4 corners of the internet, and a lot of the smaller projects, the long tail, weren't openly published. They would exist on your own personal computer or in a Dropbox folder or among a small group of people in a university department, for example. Now we have GitHub. We have this central place where we can find all of the world's open source software. Mapstack is going to do the same thing for open data. We want to have all of the open data in one place and a single search away. So you're probably wondering, why am I doing this? What's the motivation? Where does this come from? So we're going to talk about some people that I like to call the unmapped. Okay. So the unmapped are not us guys. It's not the people sat in a room for Phospher-G. We're not the unmapped. Okay. We've got maps coming out of our ears. The unmapped are the other 99%, or maybe 99.9%, who don't know how to use the plethora of tools that we're all familiar with. Now, I first discovered the Unmapped with Mango. So I have another company called Mango Maps. Some of you might be familiar with it. It's a web map publication platform. It's a tool that allows GIS users to quickly and easily turn their GIS data sets into interactive web maps and then share those privately or with a group. Mango's about 10 years old. It's been used to publish over 100,000 web maps in probably every country in the world right now. And it's not the most expensive tool, but it's not the cheapest either, which is often the case with web-based mapping tools. Our average customer pays between $100 and $200 a month to use our service. Now, when we first started Mango 10 years ago, and we first launched and we got our first trial users into the system, we noticed something very interesting. 75% of all the people that signed up for a trial never did anything. They never uploaded any data. They never made a map. They took the time to sign up for a trial and then ghosted us. So because we're a new company, we thought, oh, something's wrong with the product. We probably don't support the correct data formats. You know, once we add like raster and KML and GeoJSON, then it will change. But no, we added all of those. Still, 75% of people don't do anything. So then we thought, oh, maybe our usability, our onboarding sucks. You know, we optimize that. Walkthroughs in the beginning, lots of tutorials. Still, 75% don't do anything. So then we thought maybe it's a problem with security. You know, 10 years ago, people still didn't fully trust the cloud. A lot of people were apprehensive about putting their data there. And we're a new company. So we did a lot of work sharing our security credentials and what we're doing to ensure data security. Still, 75% of people weren't doing anything. So this was quite the conundrum. So I decided, you know what, instead of making code, I'm going to go and talk to people. So I started reaching out to these 75%, sent them an email saying, hey, I'm Chris at Mango. I saw you took the time to sign up for a trial with us. I noticed that you didn't do anything. I'd love to chat with you to see if I can help you solve whatever problem you were looking to solve. And then I started getting responses back from these users, and I would have a phone call with them. And the conversation would always go pretty much the same way. So I'd say, what were you trying to do? And they would say, well, I had this idea of data that I would like to visualize on a map. I went to try and look for that map online, couldn't find it, found your tool in Google, thought that your tool would be able to provide that map for me. I signed up for a trial, and then the first thing it asked me to do is upload a data set. And it asked me to upload a data set in a format that I wasn't familiar with. And I thought, this isn't really for me. I gave up, and then I walked away. Okay, so this was the common issue. So this is a question of expectation versus reality. There are a lot of non-GIS users out there who expect that they can just find any of the data sets that exist in the world available as maps somewhere on the internet. Their expectation is that I just go to Google, I type in the name of the data points that I'm interested in, a map pops up, I interact with the map, find the information that I need, and I leave. But what actually happens is they get introduced to the reality. The reality is they do a Google search, they end up in the maze of endless complexity, and then they give up. So what does that endless complexity actually look like? So you remember in the elevator pitch, I talked about if we wanted to find the counties in Texas where the population's 50,000 and the median income's 80,000. Okay, for us in this room, you guys are already thinking, I know how I would go about that probably. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to go and look for the open data. So maybe I would go on to, okay, maybe I'll go on to census.gov or some US open data website. I would look for the data that has population and some socioeconomic data. I would download it. Likelihood is it's not available in mapping format. It will be some kind of CSV. I would get the CSV. I would then go and look for a shapefile containing US counties. I would take those two data sets, load them into QGIS, do a table join, get my spatial data, maybe put a some kind of quantity legend on there so I could easily visualize the various median incomes. And then maybe I would do a query that were so I could pick out those counties that met my specific criteria. And if I was feeling really fancy, maybe I would dump that data out as GeoJSON, load it into an open layers app, and then I would deploy that onto my AWS account. Now, that probably made sense to everyone in this room. Now, put yourself in the shoes of somebody who about an hour ago had never even heard the acronym GIS. How daunting is that process? How many hours, days, weeks, or months of learning would it take to go from this idea of what you would like to see to that being a reality? Okay, and the reality is that that bridge is too far. So at Mango, what we tried doing is we said, right, let's try and get these unmapped users and let's turn them into beginner GIS users using training. Let's educate these people to become beginner GIS users. So we invested in video courses, ebooks, lots and lots of different things to try and take the unmapped and make them beginner GIS users. But all of them failed because the problem is when somebody's exposed to the world of GIS for the first time, they don't fully appreciate its value yet. When somebody decides they're going to invest time in learning a technology, they're running an ROI analysis in their head. And if you're very new to this, you think, oh, maybe this will be of value. But people aren't willing often to invest hours, days, weeks on a maybe it will be of value. So they just walk away and they give up. Okay, so what we're trying to do at mapstack is we're trying to turn the expectation of the unmapped into reality. Okay, so the reality should look like this. Google search of any open data set that you can possibly think of, including the long tail. You know, we're talking about US counties, socioeconomic data. That's pretty low hanging fruit. But we all know that the real value of open data exists in the very long tail. Load the map, get the answers. Okay, so this is how it should look in reality. In 2022, this is how people expect the internet to work. Okay, people expect data and software to already be combined in order to give them the results that they're looking for. So the expectation is this. I go to Google and I type in Texas county population and median income. I press search, and within the first few results, there would be a link to a map. I click on it, and we would get a map if the internet decides to play ball that looks like no, internet's still not working. Luckily, we've made a video backup. So what should happen is they go from that Google search, they come to a map that looks like this, and they can look at the median income on a quantity map. They can zoom into Texas. They can click on some features to get some information. If they're feeling really fancy, they can build a query. They can say, right, show me all the counties where the state is Texas, and the population is greater than 50,000, and the median income is greater than 80,000. And there we go. I have the results on the screen. I have the answer to my question. Maybe I can look at that in a table if I want to. And now I've got the information that I need. I could just press the back button and leave. The time from having the idea of wanting to obtain this information to the point of value, the point that I've actually got it, has been measured in seconds, not hours, days, weeks, or months. Now, how do I get back to my presentation? Oh. Okay, so when we're looking at tools like this, we're looking at actually simplicity. A lot of the things we've been looking at today are about complexity. So what I love when I go to FOSS4G events, because I'm a nerd, you know, I'm a programmer, I'm a geek. I love looking at things of, you know, 3D point cloud models. I love looking at, you know, the backstory of QGIS that we looked at today. But this is really a story of simplicity. Sometimes we need to think about the people at the absolute other end of the spectrum, the people who have no exposure to using map-based data visualization at all. And what does the process look like to take them from 0 to 1? That means from doing nothing to doing something. So I view mapstack as something that will be an on-ramp into the wider FOSS4G community, because at the moment there is no on-ramp. People are expected to jump straight in to a tool like QGIS or straight into a tool like OpenLayers. It's a very hard ask. What I'd like to see is an on-ramp where people, their first exposure to maps is an experience. And then if they would like to work with that data further, once they've been exposed to it, they have more sophisticated requirements. All of the data that's on mapstack is available for a download. All of it's open. They can grab the GeoJSON, they can load it into QGIS, and then they can continue their GIS journey, having already used the on-ramp of mapstack to access, let's call it the FOSS4G highway. So the question is probably going to be about what does it look like in terms of populating an ecosystem like this? Now, luckily, we can stand on the shoulders of giants. This playbook has been executed many times before. Decentralized content centric ecosystems. So the most common two that we'll look at here are YouTube and GitHub. YouTube's an interesting one. All of the content in there has not been added by Google or the YouTube founders. All of the content on there has been added by the community. And then obviously a developer crowd in here. We're all familiar with GitHub. All of the projects that are on GitHub have been added to GitHub by the community. And people would like to add these public resources because they believe it's a public good. I think open data is a human right. Okay, at the moment, a lot of open data, I would say, is free as in beer. It's not free as in speech. It's free as in we don't have to pay for it, but it's not free as in it's easy to find, easy to access, and easy to extract value from. So that's a brief intro to mapstack. We're currently in private beta. So if you guys would like to look under the hood and would like to see what we're working on, please go to the mapstack.io homepage. You can sign up for a trial account. Once we come out of private beta, we're going to switch gears and we're going to focus on populating the ecosystem. We're going to do this in a kind of geographic way. So we're probably going to start here with the UK, sucking in as much data as we possibly can. We have teams that are going to begin populating the system, but we're going to be looking to activate communities that are either open source communities, open data communities, or civic hackers who are aligned with these communities who would like to contribute to a project like this because they believe in the public good that it will generate. We're also in a stage of raising investment rounds at the moment in order to fund this system, because whenever you have a content-based system like GitHub, there are large underlying costs to this, to hosting the data. So in the same way that GitHub needs to have a commercial element to it, a project like this, because it's a content system, is also going to need to have a commercial arm. You'll probably wonder what that would look like. And what it will look like is what the commercial wing of GitHub looked like pre-Microsoft takeover. So anything that's open that's on the system will be free. It will always be free. You can add as much as you want. If you wish to have maps on the system which are private, you will pay for privacy. So all of the open stuff will be open forever. The private users on the system will effectively bankroll all of the public data that's contained within the system. That's the end. I got a little bit of a clock. Okay. So how do we do the questions again?
I think what we do is shout out questions. If you can repeat the question, Chris, just so that it's on the recording. So, any questions?
Maybe, I don't know if this is a fun question, but how are you sort of managing going to manage data quality and like metadata around the fact that you're grabbing it from a variety of sources and crowdsourcing it as well?
Well, I think it will actually be the opposite. Oh, sorry. Okay. The question was, how are we going to manage the quality of the data? Because there's so much data in there, so many different people putting data in. It could end up with a big mess. Now, once again, we're lucky here. This problem's already been solved by others. So what we're going to do is this will be a bottom-up play, not top-down. Many government data portals are top-down. We decide what data sets are going to go in there. We decide what metadata is included. Systems that are bottom up like GitHub and YouTube, basically the community decides what's quality and what's not. The things that are of high quality will get more. So in GitHub, things can be starred. We can see how many times a project has been forked. We can see how active the issue tracker is. We can see when the last commits were. So we have several data points that we can use to decide what's of high quality and what isn't. And you'll also see that the search engines will automatically optimize themselves to prioritize the things that are considered high quality. So the search engine inside GitHub or the search engine inside YouTube. In something like YouTube, you've probably got like an 80-20 split, where 20% of the videos on YouTube account for 80% of the traffic and 80% of the quality. And then a huge long tail of videos of, my sister's barbecue where, someone tripped over the cat, okay, forever. Okay, so we envisage a system whereby usage will determine what quality is. The community will decide what quality is, and the highest quality data sets will naturally gravitate towards the top, and low quality data or repetitive data will sink, will be lower down. Does that make sense?
Do people publish data to your platform, or do you consume an API?
So the question was, do people publish data to our platform, or do we consume an API? We envisage that there will always be a form of publication. Okay, so in the beginning, it will very much be, we won't look to consume APIs of large open data portals. We would look to the community and civic hackers to grab those data sets from those portals, curate them in a way. We haven't got time to get into this today, but we've got a way to, there's certain rules that we will try and instill in the community, like human readable column names. Okay, so we want all of this data to be accessible to the 99%, not us. So we don't want, like 8-digit column names that are good for a shapefile called, pop 2022 or something. It doesn't mean anything to anyone. So part of that publication process will be a sort of cleaning the data to make it human readable. And what we envisage in the future is, once we have a large enough community and an active community, you can kind of think about the kind of things that happen with OpenStreetMap. We would see a future where we would consume data sets for an API, but not automatically add them into the ecosystem. We could put them in a queue and say, these are data sets that we feel the community would be interested in. Any civic hackers that would like to go and grab those, clean them up and make them human readable and drop them into the system, we would all be very, very appreciative. We want a kind of gamification of the system as well, the kind of thing you get on Stack Overflow and GitHub, where users will have reputation. So you'll be able to see, how this user here, the data sets that they've added to mapstack, how many views has it had in total? How many times has that data set been forked to be used in other things? How many stars have they had? So what we'd like to do is create an incentive mechanism whereby we gamify the amount of public good that the users within the system have brought to the table, basically. Another one. Okay.
So will you be providing an API for developers to consume?
Yeah, we will. Okay, so one of the things we want to do, I think, the question was, will there be an API to get the data back out of the system? And my answer to that was, yeah, we will have an API in the future. I think one of the things that GitHub, so if can you guys remember when GitHub first launched? So the whole idea with GitHub was supposed to, without GitHub was supposed to be decentralized version control. And then all of a sudden you had GitHub and it became centralized. And not only that, it was a private company. So everyone's, I'm not really sure about this, but one of the plays that GitHub did that allowed them to gain trust of the community was to make it easy to get everything back out of GitHub. So in Git, you can get your repository back out. You could download everything via an API. So Mapstack, we're following that same playbook. Any data set that you add to Mapstack can be downloaded back out as GeoJSON. And it's just a case of actually modifying the URL. So if you're looking at a URL of the map, you just add .geojson at the end, you get the data back out. And there's a big button. So right from day one, you'll be able to programmatically grab that stuff. And in future, obviously, we're in sort of private beta at the moment, so we've got to prioritize features. Yeah, we would like to have an API where you could do that in bulk. So you could say, right, I want all of the data for Bristol, and go and grab it.
So we've been streaming this out.
Hello, Manchester.
So a question from Manchester. How would you deal with inaccurate or biased data that are uploaded by users with an agenda?
Okay, so the question was, how would we deal with biased data or data with an agenda that's in the system? So let's call it fake news, shall we? Because one of the, this is actually a really interesting topic, because when we talk about data literacy, something that we all know about are the symptoms of data literacy. What are the symptoms of most people not being able to look at data and find answers for themselves? Some of the symptoms of that are fake news, polarized political thinking. We see the symptoms all around us. Most people don't have the ability to go and look at data for themselves. So what we would hope is, by using this system, first of all, people would be able to sniff out bad data. But then also we would allow the community to mark down data in the same way that you would have in YouTube videos. You've got the dislike button. So everyone could come on and go, I don't like this. Okay, so automatically the algorithms, if they detect something has a large amount of dislike, it could be down-regulated. The other problem that you have is what happens if proprietary data winds up on this system that's not open. So obviously we're going to have some kind of ability to have takedown notices. So and have a process for that, whereby commercial companies that have the rights to data can say, sorry, this is commercial data. It's not allowed to be on here, and we'll have a process for removing that from the system. Okay, hopefully that answered the question, Manchester.
That's really cool, because the second question came in was exactly about proprietary data and licensing.
Yeah. once again, we don't have to reinvent the wheel with this stuff. It hasn't been done in mapping and what we're talking about here, but the playbook's already been written in other sectors like YouTube and GitHub because they face exactly the same problems. Okay, so we will just follow the existing playbook to deal with that.
You answered a couple of questions with the sort of information that sort of likes and dislikes and regular quality, but isn't that more about popularity?
I would. So the question was the likes and the dislikes one will regulate quality, but wouldn't that be more akin to popularity? I would love to envisage a future where maps are so popular that people are just watching them like YouTube videos and going through them and saying, I like this and I don't like that. That would be awesome. But I think in the meantime, as we are today, and I think that future might be possible, by the way, but as we are today, I think most people are grabbing data with a more pragmatic approach. They have a specific outcome or objective in mind. And I think they're pretty quickly going to realize whether they can achieve that outcome with the data or the map that they've been provided. So I think in the beginning, the like and dislike wouldn't be really, it would be more about objective points in the data rather than subjective ones that, I don't really like what it's saying. But these are all things that we're going to have to evolve with time. We have these existing playbooks out there, but we're going to have to find what the correct balance is for us and our unique situation. The starting point will be looking to how GitHub does it or YouTube does it. I would say GitHub is probably the one that we would be closest aligned with. And GitHub doesn't have the ability to dislike something. It just has the ability to stars. So they just assume fewer stars. And you can have algorithms that are quite smart with this that allow new projects to get some traction. So you can also look at how quickly you gain those stars. So you might have a project that has a lot of stars because it's been around a long time. And you have other projects that are quite new, but the frequency with which they're getting new stars is quite high. So you could create algorithms to hopefully promote new data sets the same way as GitHub promotes new projects.
Do you have a view on data around narrative in terms of if your intended audience are people who are less familiar with things to do with how data then, like the spatial that impacts the distribution of the data. So if you're asking someone, you're allowing someone to come up with custom queries, back when they see a map, they don't understand the fundamentals of why that map is the way it is in terms of the history or administrative geography, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And it might get probably with a stick, or it might make a wrong narrative.
Yeah. So the question there was, what happens if somebody's using a data set and they don't understand the data distributions there? Possibly they could come to incorrect conclusions based on the data. So there's a few parts of that. One is our target audience. We're trying to get that concept of going from 0 to 1, from doing nothing to doing something. So in many ways, it would be better to be doing something and maybe misinterpreting it than doing nothing, because that's the gateway to data literacy. You'll achieve data literacy by making those mistakes. We're going to try and build some things into the app that accommodate a lot of this. So the same way in GitHub, you have a README file. We're going to have a markdown file, which for each of the data sets, where the author can write inside the markdown file, possibly some key points that are notable, that are worthwhile of consideration. We've also built the whole thing to be team-based. So we have this idea of workspaces, and you can have multiple members in a workspace. So we would envisage a situation where one data set won't be owned by one person. There might be a community of people working around a data or a collection of data sets to solve that problem. And I have one more point on that, but it's gone. Maybe it'll come back in a second. Does that? Okay, yeah, it'll come. Maybe it'll come at lunchtime. I'll leave it. Dear.
Because you can have a search engine, obviously you've got to, when data is uploaded, you've got to be able to classify business information and whatever. Do you have any plans to try and consolidate data, like uploading single sets or like different areas? And how would you do that without too much management there?
We do. So I wasn't going to give any kind of technical demo today, but once the data set is uploaded, we're going to rely heavily on tagging. So tagging in the same way if you use Stack Overflow, where you can get to certain things by certain subjects. So when we try and make those human readable columns, so we all know this is a big problem with geodata. You have these columns that don't mean anything unless you know the sort of like lookup table somewhere else to figure out what they mean. So when we make those human readable columns, we're going to have a database of all of the common column names that have been used before, and we're going to encourage the community to use those particular column names when the data set's being added. And that will give you the added benefit where you can start doing interesting things where, oh, I want to see other data sets that are using that column name, or searches where you might say, I want to see other data sets that are within a certain vicinity, say Bristol or England, that are using those columns, and things like this. So we see big things for the search engine in future. The search engine, obviously Google will be the gateway. That'll be how most people will get there. But we've got big plans for how the internal search engine will work for people to achieve data discovery. We want them to be able to sort of get in via Google, and once they're there, go, oh, here's this, go down rabbit holes. You know how you go on rabbit holes in YouTube, don't you? You start off with one video, and then before you know where you're at, you're in some like weird place in the back. We'd like to see the same thing happen with open data, that ability to, you know, jump in at one place and then go, oh, this is interesting. This is here. Oh, I can go here. I can go there, and discover these different data sets. We feel that this also feeds into the, you know, the ideas around data literacy. Discovery would be a big part of that. Okay, I think that was the final question we were allowed. Okay, all right, thanks guys.
Brilliant. Thanks very much, Chris. And you know, it's lunchtime now, so lunch is in here, back here at 1:30 for this afternoon sessions.